This story of sex, lies and murder is full of twists and turns. It was 2009. The news of love jihad was spreading like wildfire all across the nation. It was being claimed that Muslims were planning to take over the world by increasing their population and then penetrating the system and the politics in every country, including India. Love jihad was one such tool where Muslim men would marry non-Muslim women, convert them to Islam, and then have multiple children from them to increase the Muslim population while reducing the other religions' population. Mainly Hindus in India, because Hinduism is the dominant religion here. It was this social setting that unraveled one of the most notorious serial killers in India. On June 17, 2009, Anita Mulya, a 22-year-old girl, went missing. She hailed from a small village, was poor and belonged to a lower caste. Any one of these reasons would have sufficed to not investigate her disappearance. But these were the times when communal strife was brewing under the surface. For 2 days, her family and neighbors searched for her in vain. But then a faction realized that she was a Hindu. Quickly assuming it to be yet another case of love jihad, they started feverish protests throughout the district. Around 150 people laid siege to the local police station, threatening to burn it down unless the police arrested the kidnappers. It was then that the police even took the case seriously. They requested the mob to give them 10 days to investigate. Unknown to them, her body had already been found 160 kilometers away, frothing at the mouth, only a day after she went missing. She was dressed as a bride, and her body was found in the restroom of a bus station. While her body was being pulled out, a short man with a thick mustache slipped away quietly. He left the bus station and went straight to the lodge room where he and the now deceased bride had spent the night. He packed his bags, scooped up her jewelry and money, and left the town. 160 kilometers away, the police had started investigating without knowing it was already too late. The first thing they did was to pull her phone records. They found that Anita had received multiple calls from one particular number. When they traced that number, it led them to another missing girl, Kaveri. The calls were made after Kaveri went missing, which was peculiar. When Kaveri's call records were pulled out, it led them to 2 more missing girls, Vinudha and Pushpa. A pattern had begun to emerge, and before long, the police were staring at a list of 20 missing girls. The suspect was making calls from one missing girl's SIM card to the next. At first, the police thought that this was a human trafficking racket that targeted unmarried women. But they couldn't find any trace of such an operation, so they collaborated with other police stations to scour for more missing women complaints and then built up a timeline around these 20 girls. The investigation revealed something shocking. All these women had been found dead just a day after they had gone missing. All of them were dressed as a bride when they were found. All of them had died in the ladies' toilet of major bus stations. Yet, all of them were registered as Jane Does. Why? Because their photographs were published in the local newspapers but not circulated outside the district limits. Problem was, their hometown would be in one district, but their bodies would be found in another district. So their families would never see the photograph, never come to identify the body, and the bodies were promptly cremated. Autopsy in all 20 cases clearly revealed poisoning, yet they were all registered as unnatural deaths and suspected suicides, which was sheer laziness. Blood samples of only 2 victims were sent to forensics, and when they revealed that cyanide was the cause of their death, nothing was done, even though it's a chemical that's not easily available. and certainly not commonly used in suicides. Also, these 20 cases were handled by 9 different police stations in the state, but they never collaborated before. More shocking is the fact that some of these police stations handled more than one such case, but they never connected the dots and never investigated. This means that if there was no communal strife, no pressure applied on the police, this serial killer would still be on the loose, still killing innocent women. And the scariest thing is, his kill rate increased every year. Whipped into action, the police were still investigating. They found that the 20 SIM cards of these missing women were at some point active in a small village in Mangaluru. While the cops swarmed every hotel and lodge in that town to uncover a prostitution racket, they got to know that one of the SIM cards was active right that moment. They rushed to the spot and found the killer, but the killer wasn't arrested immediately. He looked too soft-spoken and well-mannered to be a killer. So, his phone was tapped, and the police realized he was talking to the next victim. The police sought help of that woman and lured him to meet her. She had already testified to seeing him with Anita at the bus station and that he had approached her with the offer of marriage. This info was enough to nab him. What this soft-spoken, well-mannered former school teacher told the police during his custodial interrogation was way worse than they had imagined. This was a serial killing of the proportion that the state had never witnessed before. He said he had killed 32 women. He said he loitered around the bus stations and other public places looking for unmarried women belonging to poor families, especially those who looked past their age of marriage. In India, it is easy to distinguish between married and unmarried women. Various jewelries, gold or otherwise, are an easy giveaway. So he would approach such women, introduce himself as a government officer, and strike up a conversation. If he got a positive response, he would exchange phone numbers and slowly build up a relationship. He was meticulous with every detail. He would ask them their name and caste before claiming to be from the same caste. Then he would say that he is looking for a life partner and that he doesn't expect any dowry or a fancy marriage ceremony. For such poor girls belonging to lower castes, it was unimaginable to get a groom with a government job and who didn't want any dowry. It was too sweet a deal to turn down, so they would agree. He would then propose to get married away from the family in a simple ceremony, either at a temple or at the registrar's office. Once the marriage date was fixed, Mohankumar and the victim would take a bus out of the girl's hometown to distant cities. They would check into a lodge near the bus station of this city and Kumar would enter fake names in the visitor's register. That night, they would have sexual contact. Next morning, before marriage, they would plan to visit a temple for God's blessings. So he would tell the girl to not wear the jewelry lest it got stolen or they got robbed. They would leave the jewelry in the lodge room and head out. On the way to the temple though, Mohankumar would stop at the bus station and tell the girl that it would be better if she took contraceptives to avoid unwanted pregnancy before marriage. He would then give the girl a pill laced with cyanide and tell her that this pill may make her sick, so better she takes it in the washroom. Fearing the pill may make her throw up, the girl would then lock the door to the ladies' toilet from inside, take the pill and drop dead. After confirming she was dead for sure, Mohankumar would sneak out of the bus station, go to their room, pack all bags with her jewelry and valuables inside, and then leave the city. He would then head straight to gold finance companies and pawn the jewelry thus acquired. With this confession, the news got out. As soon as the news media picked up this story, they christened him Cyanide Mohan. Then when the news of his brutal killings hit the newspapers and TV channels, his completely shocked family came to see him in jail. They couldn't believe the news and the police were talking about the same person. Their family member wasn't the man they were claiming him to be. But to everyone's utter surprise, 2 families had come to see him. That was when his wives got to know that he had another wife apart from them. 2 kids from each wife. 2 wives and 4 children. It was possible that his own parents didn't know about him having 2 wives and 4 kids. This begs the question whether there was anything in his childhood that turned him into the serial killer that he became. So let's have a peek into his childhood now. The road to Kanyana, Cyanide Mohan's native village, is a dusty thoroughfare that cuts away from a highway. It winds up and down along the Kalanjimale Reserved Forest past a smattering of thatched homes. The residents here are mostly daily wage farmers who do back-breaking work on lands of affluent farmers. It was in Kanyana that Mohankumar was born to a scheduled caste family on April 6, 1963. He has 3 siblings, 2 brothers and a sister. In the 70s, courtesy the state government's rural housing scheme for backward sections, the family got a concrete tile-roofed single-story house where Mohankumar's brother Ramesh continues to reside. In those days, children having academic interests were rare and most would drop out of school. But not Mohankumar and his siblings. They were all bright and studied well, which gained them respect in the community. Mohankumar not only completed school, he even went away to get his BA degree, which was a pretty big deal. As a child, he was athletic and played kabaddi and cricket. He was mild-mannered, reserved, and spoke less. He was also deeply attached to his mother, especially after his father abandoned them when he was around 10 or 12. But overall, his childhood was pretty normal. Right after graduation, he entered government services as a primary school teacher and then got married for the first time to Mary. But the marriage soon ended because his wife was a Christian and he purportedly refused to convert to Christianity. Then, his family arranged his marriage in 1992 to a woman of the same community as him. Manjula was her name. He has 2 sons from that marriage. He was always nice to them but rarely talked. He would come home from school, eat, and then go to sleep. But he never took them out for shopping, movies, or outings. Never even bought chocolates for the kids. But he took care of their expenses. Then one day, he said that he was transferred to another location. It's common for government employees to get transferred, and that he had no money to travel back home. So, he stayed there and visited once a week thereafter. His wife Manjula and the kids thought that he was working so hard for them. Little did they know that it was either the beginning of a new relationship with his 3rd wife Sridevi, or he was out hunting women. For a woman killer, he was oddly attached to Sridevi, his 3rd wife. He has a daughter and a son with her. It was at her house that the police nabbed him at last. It was at her house that police found evidence like cyanide powder, various iCards with different names of all the aliases he used to lure his victims into his trap, and a diary that he maintained on all the women he tried to and actually trapped. Yet, he forgets her name sometimes. It was probably this problem of forgetting names and details that he had maintained a diary with all the details about the women he tried to trap and those that he actually trapped. The women who didn't take the bait, he scratched off their names from the list. The first entry into this diary goes back many years when he had tried to kill a lady by throwing her into the river. She was rescued by local fishermen who later testified against Mohan, saying he tried to kill her. However, he says that she was in love with him and wanted to marry him, but he was already married and couldn't take on another responsibility, so he refused. That was when she jumped into the river by herself and spread lies about him. In any case, he was charged with attempted murder and was jailed for a month before he was acquitted. There he came in contact with a goldsmith who was doing time for carelessly discarding the waste after cleaning gold ornaments. He said that gold jewelry is cleaned with cyanide powder, and because he didn't take precaution in discarding the waste, 8 cows and goats had to lose their lives. That was why he was in jail. Mohankumar, being smart and a smooth talker, easily extracted more information about how cyanide could kill instantaneously and how it could be procured. Soon after being acquitted, he would pose as a jeweler and would scour chemist shops for the poison. One chemist took the bait and started supplying him with the deadly chemical. In 2003, one could just buy it off the shelf for Rs 250 a kg, which is $3.50 a kg. This chemical dealer later testified in court and also did time himself for selling the chemical so carelessly. After all, he had failed to verify the authenticity of the claim that Mohankumar was really a jeweler before selling the deadly poison. Anyway, nobody knows for sure what made the soft-spoken Professor Mohankumar, who at one point taught English, science and mathematics at a primary school in rural Mangaluru, metamorphose into Cyanide Mohan. But I have a theory. He was a smart, poor, God-fearing, average person. Then one day, he fell head over heels in love with a woman, Sridevi. She was the love of his life, but he was already married at the time. If he told Sridevi that, she would leave him. If he told his wife Manjula about her, she would create a racket and would never let him marry Sridevi. Thus began the body of lies. He married Sridevi without letting anybody know about the other. But soon, the expenses doubled and his income remained the same. He knew he was a smooth talker and he could trap anybody if he wanted. He trapped the first woman to get extra income from her valuables. But the game turned on him and he not only had to spend a month in jail but also lost his job in the process. Now there were double the expenses and no income whatsoever. If he told any of his wives about the lost job, Sridevi would leave him and Manjula would cause trouble. So he hid the fact from both of them. But he would go out daily as if to teach the kids, but loiter at the bus station instead. The pressure of survival was too much to handle, and slowly a plan started to form in his mind. From the jeweler, he had gained new knowledge, and if he trapped a girl now, there was no way she would survive or be rescued in time to rat on him. He found easy target in unmarried women who were past their marriage age. He was meticulous, smart, and a smooth talker. He lured the first woman, made contraceptive pills laced with cyanide powder, and fed them to her. Then he picked up her valuables and bolted town. For the next 20-odd days, he felt really bad about what he did. But he needed a paycheck at the end of the month for both his families. So, he put the incident in his rearview mirror and moved on with his life. For many months after that, he scoured the newspapers and TV channels for any news on the dead girl. But when nothing happened, he ventured again. As per police records, he had 1 victim in 2004, 3 in 2005, and 9 in 2009. However, he still insists that he didn't kill any of the women. He says he only created the circumstances for them to kill themselves. When asked why he created those circumstances, he says he feared another case being filed against him of duping them for money or sexual harassment. His problem of forgetting names and things also helped him get over his guilt soon. Yet, a priest has testified that Mohan had asked him if there was a ritual to cleanse him of the sin of killing a woman. Though an odd request, the priest had performed the ritual and Mohan had sincerely participated in it. In any case, after he confessed, his family visited him a few times, but then stopped when the media and police started hounding them for more info. His small village got propelled into spotlight and got swarmed by media, police and politicians because everyone wanted to know what caused him to go crazy and become a serial killer. Now Sridevi has divorced him and his siblings have removed all the pictures from their walls and his memories from their minds. They all want to forget him, but he can't stop himself from asking if Sridevi still remembers him fondly. He was offered a court-appointed lawyer because he couldn't afford a lawyer of his own, but he refused the offer and insisted he fought his own case in the court. Who could represent me better than myself? He asks. Standing before the judge, Cyanide Mohan looks a professor and a lawyer rolled into one. He turns towards the investigating officer and asks confidently, "At one place in your report, it is written that I sold the jewelry, while at the other it says the gold was pledged. Is it mere discrepancy or proof of the lies that the police has concocted about me?" Caught off guard, the officer looks embarrassed. "It might just be a typo," he admits meekly. Mohan bows before the judge and takes his place. Some lawyers believe he may be digging his own grave, but other lawyers think that this may also be his strategy. If he is convicted, he could ask for a retrial with a plea that he might not have been competent enough to fight his own case. In any case, he knows pretty well how the legal system in India works and is using every tactic to delay the inevitable. There are various levels of courts in India, and every level's judgment can be challenged in the higher court. He can also ask for a retrial under the reason mentioned before, and even if he is proved a killer beyond doubt in the highest level of court, the Supreme Court, he can still wait till it's time for him to hang and then send a plea to the President to forgive him and spare him the death penalty. And he can do that for every single case separately and wait for the President to respond. He won't be hanged till every plea is at rest. This draconian system has caused a lot of heartache to many Indians in the recent case of gang rape and murder of a Delhi girl, where it took more than 7 years to dole out the punishment after getting the death penalty in a fast-track court. Those culprits had also used every tactic to delay their punishments. This delay caused uproar all across the nation, and when another girl was killed in a similar fashion, the police were placed under tremendous pressure by the public. This pressure caused the police to take law into their own hands, and they killed the culprits in an encounter even before the case could reach any court. In the public's eyes, they all became heroes overnight. But were they right in killing those culprits? Morally, yes, but legally, no. So what's the right way of tackling such a situation? Well, the only right thing is to close all the loopholes that the culprits use to delay their punishment and make the system work faster and more efficiently. That's the only way to provide justice, because right now, either the victim dies or the culprit dies before the court even reaches any conclusion. That's not justice. Tell me which case I should take next in the comments below. Also, please tell me about the famous cases in your part of the world. This is Rupali logging out now. Until my next video, keep safe. Namaste.